But I sat with him for 3 hours today. And let me say what I don't know him, but if people could have the passion for one thing in their life, the way this man has a passion for the victims of child trafficking, this world will be a whole lot better. And that to me is more important than whether or not somebody, follows a religion I follow or they don't follow religion.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.
Roderick Morrow and I connected as well on The Last of Us. We did a podcast, but we really didn't do a podcast on The Last of Us. We did a podcast on All of Us. He said that this TV series, which had its season finale this weekend, is really kind of an exercise in empathy, the video game. And I was thinking about that today because Tim Tebow has a 3-hour and 27-minute interview. Tim Tebow, the former NFL quarterback, Heisman Trophy winner, national champion with the Florida Gators, first-round draft pick for the Denver Broncos. He is also a super Christian. And some people, and I'm curious because it's Talk That Talk Tuesday. When you hear the name Tim Tebow, does it make you just like, I ain't really feeling that guy. I'm not really trying to hear what he has to say. When you hear super Christian, does that make you, I'm not really trying to listen to that. I'm not really trying to be, I don't trust it. Do you feel that way? I'm just curious. I'm curious because, in having this conversation today with Rod, while we were talking about a larger thing, like who's right, in the Last of Us, there's this young lady, Ellie, who's on a revenge mission, but the person that killed her person, he killed her father, and I'm like, so I'm like team the person that committed the assault first. And I said, and this is actually a conversation about Israel and Gaza. So we got into it because when people tell their story, when you're introduced to a story through a certain lens, it already shades and shapes how you're going to think about it. So if you come into a story team Joel and Ellie, by the time you meet this young lady that kills Joel, spoiler alert, I'm sorry, but if you play the video game, you're like, oh, she's evil. But then you find out Joel killed her daddy. So is she evil? It's like Hatfields and McCoy. Who started the fight? And whose side are you on? And how do we get to humanity's side? So I'm talking about this because I feel like too many of us dismiss people based on the narrative that they come into, your purview through. So if it's somebody like a Tim Tebow, Tebow, it's easy to dismiss him because, he's one of these sold out Christians and I don't mess with that. But I sat with him for 3 hours today. And let me say what, I don't know him, but if people could have the passion for one thing in their life, the way this man has a passion for the victims of child trafficking, this world will be a whole lot better. And that to me is more important than whether or not somebody, follows a religion I follow or they don't follow religion, whether they're atheists or whatever. I mean, I think about the world that I live in right here on Urban View, where we have, I don't really know the religious backgrounds of all of the people who are intimately involved in producing these shows because we don't talk about that because it doesn't matter. How they show up for us matters more than whether they pray to Allah. As a matter of fact, I do know we have a Muslim, we have a couple of Christians, people who say they're Christian. I don't know. I don't get involved in that, though, is my point. Now that I'm thinking about it, because it doesn't matter. We are an ecosystem here, and, racially, that doesn't matter. And it feels really good to come into a space where we get to be as free as we want to be to talk about the things we talk about every day and not have to be handcuffed by ideology. We just get to be, and we can disagree on substance on certain things, but it's not, I'm not disagreeing with you because you're white or because I'm black. I'm not disagreeing with you because you don't believe what I believe. I'm disagreeing with you on the substance of the matter, and that's someplace that when we come in with respect, we can arrive at a place where we just don't agree on it, and that's fine. But Tim Tebow did this interview with this guy, who I don't know, but the man has 4.4 million. He's got 4.4 million subscribers on his YouTube channel, which is a lot of people. And but what was sad about that is he's got 4.4 million subscribers, and less than 1 million people actually watch this 3-hour and 27-minute video. Now, parts of it have been put out there on TikTok because Tim Tebow said something about white men. And because we're in a hyperly racist, racially racialized society that has weaponized whiteness in a way, I won't say it's never been weaponized before, because I think the very existence of this made up construct is to be a weapon against everybody that's not, or to be used as a weapon to maintain power for a very scant few people. There's some that would dismiss him because of the complexion he is. But I sat with this man today and I said, wow. How many people watched the 1 minute and 40 something second clip? But then how many people, because I watched the clip and I said, what else did he say? And so on TikTok, there's this music, how they put the dramatic music, and it's like, oh, and white men are the biggest problems. And I was like, yeah, there's something more. What did he say before this? So I went back to the beginning of the interview, and oh my goodness, he is saying something about society. And I'm going to tell you the conclusion that I came to, because I'm sure it's different than most, because I'm always looking at things from a much broader, like, impact. What are the breadcrumbs leading to this moment that we're in? How do we get here? And I'm pulling all of these threads together, and it's forming a picture for me that is very daunting and scary. And but we have to confront it, because we've been indoctrinated. I sat with Howard French, who's so brilliant. He's so brilliant. This man has written Born in Blackness, and his latest book is on the African, he calls it the Second Emancipation. And it's looking at Patrice Lumumba and Nkrumah and the parallels to the 50s, but also how Nkrumah in many ways, gave a nod to the civil rights movement, and how, we're in a time, and I'm like, how wild is it that we have right now this kind of, you're not foundational black and this and that going on, when it was Garvey that gave birth to the Nation of Islam, that then gave birth to, the Black Panther Party. And you look at all of the fights for liberation, and they figured out really early, even the Rainbow Coalition, Fred Hampton's version, that we're stronger together, and it shouldn't be tied to complexion or even birth. It should be tied to liberation. And everybody should want liberation for everybody. It should not be my liberation and your oppression. And it shouldn't be okay for you to be oppressed as long as I have my liberation. As long as I'm okay, let's not pay attention. Y'all got to figure it out. No, we're all going to figure it out together, because when we all are free, then we can fight over dumb stuff. We can fight over the damn sports teams, and it won't matter, But what Tim Tebow, I think he said, I don't even know if he put it together, but for me, it was very clear what's going on in this world. And I feel like all of this is leading to something. So I'm going to start with, and let me just, for those of you who have had sexual abuse in your life as a child, which is far too many, you may be triggered by this, but I think it's an important conversation to hear out of this particular mouth, because I don't think I've heard it out of this particular mouth. He is a hero in many places in this country, and he is telling on this country in a way that I was shocked. All right, Smith, play the first clip.
Because my dad was in a underground pastors conference in a country where faith isn't really allowed, and so he's meeting with these pastors underground so they don't get arrested and they can go back to their communities and minister. And in that underground location, men came in with four little girls and started to auction off these four little girls to all of the men that are in this place. And one of the reasons why my dad's one of my greatest heroes and role models, he just can't look the other way. And he didn't have a 7-step plan of what to do. He didn't have a plan of action, a strategic thought. He just was, no, those girls are priceless to God. I got to do whatever I can. He took out all the money in his wallet, which was $1,250 for the rest of his trip and to get home. And he purchased the freedom of those four girls. And he called me afterwards, and I said, "Hey, Dad, how's the trip going? How you doing?" And he said, "I'm doing okay." I was like, What are you up to?" And he said, I just purchased the freedom of four girls. I'm like, what are you talking about, Dad? He goes on to tell me the story, and I just knew in that conversation, and I don't know, Sean, it's hard to explain. I just knew this is also part of what we were called to do, being at TTF. And not long after I got to fly to that location, you show up and you're thinking all these thoughts like, oh, this is like Taken and Liam Neeson, and this is cartels, and it's, crime families and all of this. And by that time, we even had more kids. And by that time, when I got there, you realize most of these children were sold by their family. One of the first girls that I got to meet, she didn't make enough money one day, and so when she got home, her mom, in such a place of desperation, took her and boiled out her eye. And
Boiled out her eye.
boiled out her eye. And I just knew God let me see. God let me see for a reason. God let me feel for a reason. Not so that I can just create awareness, or not so I can just tell a story, because he's saying, I let you see, I let you feel, I let you be here because I want you to do something about it. Because I want you to stand up and fight for her, because she doesn't have a voice. And all of these other boys and girls, they don't have a voice and no one's standing for them. Will you? And that was the start of it for us. And man, when we got into it, we had just no idea what we were doing. I mean, no idea. Just trying to learn and figure it out. And I also want to mention one thing about that story with my dad before we move on is, who is my dad sitting with? A group of pastors.
Ooh, a group of pastors. His dad, it's the Karen Hunter Show. I'm talking about Tim Tebow. He just recently did an interview, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, with Sean Ryan, who has 4.4 million subscribers on his YouTube channel. They did a 3-hour and 27-minute discussion. And this is kind of the beginning of the discussion, where Tim Tebow's dad, who was a Baptist minister, as a matter of fact, Tim Tebow was born in the Philippines. It took me down a rabbit hole because, of course, I've known Tim Tebow. I've criticized Tim Tebow as being, not so good a quarterback, but yet, he gets to have a job and Colin Kaepernick doesn't. Like I've had these conversations on the sports realm. Like I always thought that he got more of a profile than he deserved talent-wise. But as a human being, this man gets all of the prizes. And even being some of you right now, like, oh, the super Christian thing. Listen, this should be the standard that we hold people to who open their mouths and say that they're Christian, right? If you say that you follow Christ, damn it, your life better line up with it. And this young man was raised by a man who was, he was born in the Philippines because his dad was there on a missionary venture. Now, I also have an issue with folk going to other places spreading the gospel under the guise of, converting them to something, when the reality is many of the conditions that are prevalent throughout the world have been fomented by policies from the United States of America. So instead of going over there, spreading the gospel, start here and tell people to stop being horrible, spreading horrible things all over the world. And the irony of people who go to Africa is that Christianity started there. So you're coming there to spread what now? White Jesus? Because Christianity started in Africa. The very first quote unquote convert was an African. And the most pure depiction of Christianity, the purest Bible, is still in Ethiopia to this day. But that's there's history. That's history, something people can study. If you don't believe me, please go do your research, not on YouTube, but, actually get sources. And, it's not a hard thing to find. And I only bring it up as an aside, as a footnote, because his dad, I believe, really felt like he was there to do something. But the irony is that you're in a room full of pastors underground, spreading religion in a place where Christianity could get you killed. And they're in this underground place, and that they bring 4 little girls into that place to sell them tells you everything you need to know about that space. It's like the irony of that, the hypocrisy of that you brought children there. And his father bought the children and freed them, which is admirable. But the bigger issue is, what about the pastors? Hold them accountable. Turn over the tables. Where's the bullwhip? Which is wild. As he's telling the story, I'm like, did it dawn on him that the very people? But then it goes on, because if you watch it, boy, whoo, then he brings it home to the United States, right? So this happened over there. And for many of us, things that happen over there, of course, people are trafficked over there. These countries are poor. But we never connect the dots, right? Like, were they pushed into poverty with a purpose to do this very thing? This is the question that I'm asking myself now, as I watch this country implode and fall into chaos. But more than chaos, there's a lawlessness that is permeating. And there's also this kind of Handmaid's Tale, under his eye vibe going on right now. That is, I'm trying to figure it out. I think I've got it. And maybe I don't, but this is where I'm landing with this, because I feel like the undertow is people want to be able, and I'm going to say men want to be able to do whatever they want to bodies of other people without check. And if I think about, the transatlantic slavery and the breeding farms, the breeding plantations, where men got to do whatever, the father, quote unquote, father of gynecology, the horrors that we don't even know about, because who was writing about it? And then yet people were writing about it, because some people were very proud. So we do have some sense of what was going on, but even that was trafficking. Children. Right? Most of the children that were brought in the holds of ships, most of the human beings, human cargo, were 12 and 13 and 14-year-olds. They weren't grown people. Most of them hadn't even gone through a rites of passage. So we're doing this again and again and again. And maybe these countries have been thrown into these places so that people can do this to the most vulnerable, unchecked. Because who's checking on them? Who's checking on what's going on in the Gaza Strip? Who's checking on the women that were in cages, that are being deported, who's checking on them? Who's advocating for them? So shout out to Tim Tebow for bringing this to the forefront. But of a website, a man that has a platform of 4.4 million, not even 1 million people watch that video. Is it too uncomfortable? Are these things that we rather not talk about? Do we not talk about them? I'm going to again praise this man, Tim Tebow, for being a human being in this moment. I don't know what else he's done in his life. Maybe he's done some horrible things that'll come out later. At this point, you already know, I will chew up the meat and spit out the bones. I will not toss out the baby with the bath water. I'm going to, all right, Smith, play the second clip.
Every red dot on that map.
Okay, well, pause for a second. So in this clip, Sean Ryan holds up a map, and it's a map of the United States of America. And on the map are dots of people who have been arrested for child pornography and child rape, right? So think the sexual offender map, except this one is like even deeper, because on the map, every dot represents somebody that has violated a child 12 or under. 12 or under. Okay, play it.
Every red dot on that map is at least one unique IP address of individuals downloading, sharing, distributing child abuse and rape images under the age of 12. And there's over 111,000 of them just in the US. Of the last 30 days. And I wanted to bring that because I think it brings to life so much of the evil that we're trying to face. And people will say, well, that's just over there and it's in those countries and it's all of those places. And it's not. Sean, it's right here in our backyard. It is right here. And out of everyone, and some people will say, okay, well they're just downloading and sharing it and distributing it, but they're not. 55 to 85% are also hands-on offenders, and your average offender has 13 victims in their lifetime. 13 victims. Every one of those red dots is there's a boy or girl that is suffering on the other end of what they're sharing, downloading, or distributing. And I wanted to share that with you because I know that your heart breaks for them. And I think that map brings to life the evil that we're trying to fight. And it's why, one of our hearts is to get the Renewed Hope Act passed through Congress, because it takes the law enforcement officers right now and victim identification officers at C3, and they're amazing. Some of my favorite people in the world, but there's 7 of them right now at C3.
There's how many?
7.
Seven people to
yes, and also ICACs are working on that. We love ICAC, and we need to enhance their funding because they desperately need it. Internet crimes against children, and they're awesome. 62 locations around the country, but primarily the ones that are also working on this are at C3. And we want to get the Renewed Hope Act passed because it would take it from 7 to 200. And now we have a much greater chance if we have all of those officers that are trained and equipped to be fighting against this evil. And again, that's the last 30 days. And that's not getting into live streaming or sextortion or grooming or so many of the other issues we're fighting. That is just in peer-to-peer networks of them sharing and distributing child rape images under the age of 12.
Tim Tebow, for everybody, is like, well, what about this and what about that? Why does he do this? He's doing his thing. What's your thing? He's found something that he's passionate about. Tim Tebow founded the Tim Tebow Foundation to combat human trafficking and support orphans and do this work of child trafficking and bringing light to it. But also he's rolling up his sleeves and getting hard in the paint and also pressing his Congress people, because we're going to be talking today with one of the people involved with mayors, the Black mayors throughout the country. We're going to be talking about action plans and what we do in these individual cities, because we all live somewhere. But we all also are breathing. If you're listening, you're breathing. What's your passion? What's your one thing? This is Tim Tebow's thing. Now, maybe in your town, this could be one of, you could take your town on this subject if it moves you. This man is moving him. And he is pressing Congress for the Renewed Hope Act, which is a bipartisan bill that was introduced by several members of Congress, including John Cornyn, Laurel Lee, Richard Blumenthal, Debbie Wasserman Schultz. The goal is to enhance the U.S. Department of Homeland Security in their efforts to fight online child sexual exploitation and abuse. The act aims to improve identification, rescue, and protection of child victims, and to bring perpetrators to justice. Now, who would be against this? As I'm reading this bill, though, as I'm reading the bill that was introduced that has not been passed, I'm asking why. Why hasn't it gone to why hasn't the Senate put it to the, and then I'm thinking this administration with all of the former people that we have an adjudicated sex offender who spent 17 trips to Epstein Island where children, young girls, were being violated, allegedly. Well, actually, I can say that because Ghislaine Maxwell is in jail, right? She got convicted. And Jeffrey Epstein was this close to being convicted and then was found not alive. Why not? Oh, the list. Wasn't Pam Bondi supposed to release the list? You want to give us the Kennedy files? No, give us the Epstein files, because I believe at the core of everything that we're dealing with right now, this is a bait and switch. Look over here, is this. And here's what's really bothering me, because I sat for 3 hours watching this damn interview. Okay, so I'm furious that we live in a world where children, where the lives and the sanctity of children, we don't care enough. We, all of us. This should be like, okay, reparations, absolutely. This right here, Everybody was a child at some point. All of you listening, you were a child. And a lot of you had people touch you. A lot of you had people touch you. You are still walking around with that pain and shame and all of that trauma. And this is happening every single day in this country. Not over there, here. Tim Tebow, one man. There are a lot of us. I can get behind this easily. Well, I'm doing it today, matter of fact. And I'm playing these clips because to me, this is just a symptom of a greater ill in society. And it speaks to a lot of things that we tune out from. And it is why we have this president. And it is why this country is so damn divided and horrible and chaotic. It's because we choose to not hold accountable the folk that are actually doing the harm. Some of us Sunday sat in a church where you know your pastor is trash. You know it. Everybody knows it. Y'all talk about him or her after the thing, and you sit your pine parts in that church every single Sunday without fail. You watch it, you zoom in or whatever, and you don't hold that person accountable. And there's those of you who believe. Some of you set your hind parts in a synagogue on Friday night. And you know your rabbi is trash. And you do nothing but sit there and you validate the trashiness by saying nothing. Some of you are in a mosque where you know the imam ain't quite right. And then some of you were just horrible. Or you have horrible people around you and you say nothing. It's the silence that will kill us. Silence is not golden in this instance. It's in the face, in confronting, and there's ways to do it. But you bring 4 little girls into a room full of pastors and only one person is like, hey, something's wrong here. I'm going to buy their freedom instead of, why do you think you can bring these children in here? And I'm going to take it beyond the children and child trafficking because as a little girl, I lived in East Orange. And I used to walk to the corner store on Hoffman Boulevard underneath the bridge. And it was always wild to me that there were cigarette ads and liquor stores, in my neighborhood, because I'm like, they would go broke if they depended on me. I think about the crack epidemic. And yes, we can say Nixon definitely flooded, Reagan with the crack, Nixon with the heroin. This was a government sanctioned flooding of drugs into a particular community, and it was decimating. It was destructive. At the same time, you could try to flood Dubai. Let me not put Dubai into it, but I'm asking a larger question, right? As soon as the drugs come in, if there was a sense of community enough to say, no, we are not taking the drugs, that plan would fail. Now, they would come up with other plans. Trust and believe. They just found one that was easy. But why is it easy? Do we lack discipline? I'm talking individually now, not collectively.
We're ready. We're prepared. Do not give in to fear. We are fearless. This is not the time to be afraid. This is a time to stand up and fight back and to resist any temptation for them to divide us. We're in this together. The rule of law is on our side. We will not give in, not give up. We will not capitulate. We will not bow. We will not bend. We will survive.